Okay, so today we start a completely new topic, and the topic is time dependent perturbation theory. And in this topic, we will see that many things change when you compare this system where there is time dependent perturbation with the systems that you had encountered during time independent perturbation theory. In fact, the goal of time dependent perturbation theory is basically not to figure out what are the correction to states and correction to energy levels. It is something else, as we will see just now. So, as usual, to start with, we assume that there is this Hamiltonian H naught which is time independent. So, just like the time independent perturbation theory, you have based your discussion on a particular Hamiltonian whose solution, whose exact spectrum you already know and which was time independent also. Here also in time dependent perturbation theory, the system with which you start is again the Hamiltonian which is time independent and whose exact spectrum is already known, and we will call that H naught, just like the time independent case, the unperturbed Hamiltonian. And by H naught being known, I mean that we know how to solve for eigenvalues and eigenfunctions. We also know that the eigenfunctions in this case, where your H naught is time independent, will be stationary states, and you can write down the Schrodinger equation exactly in this form, which is known to all of us: IH bar ddt of unt, where unt are the eigenstates, eigenkates, equal to H naught unt, kate unt. So this is your Schrodinger equation, and you can write down the formal solution of this equation as unt is equal to e to the power minus I en t by h slash un0, kate un0. So that means given this un0, this operator or this quantity is basically multiplying with un0 and you are getting unt. So we have H naught acting on un. We will denote this un0 object, the kate, as just un kate, and therefore our equation should look something like H naught kate un equal to un en into un. So what is the physical meaning? You have all encountered this thing. There is no problem in this discussion. So the physical meaning of this equation or this whole process is that, suppose initially the system is in the state ui, or you can also denote it just by kate I, then it remains in that state forever unless it is disturbed, because you have this factor. Whatever you do, like you try to figure out with bra what is the inner product of this unt, then you will immediately see that this object will get cancelled and you will get inner product of unt equal to un inner product with un. So that means at time t equal to 0, whatever was the inner product, it will remain at time t equal to t. So that's what you can precisely tell if you write down the inner product in this form. The probability amplitude, therefore, for finding the system at a later time in a different state, this is important, in a different state. So if you ask me what is the probability amplitude for finding a stationary state of a system at a later time in a completely different state, then the answer is 0, because the system will be unable to make a transition to a different state completely by itself, unless otherwise it is being perturbed by something else. So it cannot, once the system is in a particular stationary state, it cannot on its own transit to a different state. Now, if there is a perturbation, now suppose we have a perturbation, of course the story is going to be different, and we can have a system in a state and we can apply the perturbation for a certain period of time, and we can ask this question that what is the state of the system after we stop the perturbation. So I have a system which is in a known state, which is in a known Hamiltonian. So I can write down the system with one of my known Hamiltonians. Then after certain time, I actually start applying a perturbation. So here is my system. Suppose this is my time axis. Then at some point, till this point, I have my H0 as my Hamiltonian. And after this point at t equal to t0, suppose I start to apply my perturbation. And then I stop perturbing the system at a later time, say t final. I will ask the question, what will be the state of the system after I have removed the perturbation? So that is what your time dependent perturbation theory is going to give you. So it will give you the system in a different state after you have stopped perturbing the system. Now we will assume, as usual, as I already have said, that H0 is known. That means its eigenvalues and eigenfunctions are known, and also it is time independent, as I have said. We will also assume that the perturbation is time dependent. This is where the dependence on time comes in. So I have a perturbation which I denote by H prime, but this H prime, the Hamiltonian H prime, is a function which is dependent on time. Therefore, your full Hamiltonian, which you can denote by H, should be dependent on time, because although H naught is independent, my H prime, which is the perturbing Hamiltonian, this is dependent on time. Now, because H prime is dependent on time, this H prime of t will not have a well-defined spectrum. This is very important to understand, because being time dependent, H prime t cannot be written in a stationary state. So you cannot actually write down H prime t acting on some stationary state giving you some fixed energy eigenvalues. H0 had well-defined energy eigenstates. Because you can separate the full solution psi of xt of the full Schrodinger equation into a part which was dependent on space and a part which was dependent on time, and the time dependent part had this trivial time dependence phi of t is equal to e to the power minus I e t by h bar. So that was possible simply because your H naught was independent of time. That is why you were able to separate the variables when you had started with psi of xt. You had written psi of xt separately as a product of psi of x times phi of t. This precise thing cannot be done for h prime t. This is because h prime t is dependent on time. Therefore, this separation of variable is not possible. Therefore, for h prime t, I cannot get some particular fixed energy eigenvalue. It is not possible to get that. So the equation in this case, in our case, that we should look for, of course, is the Schrodinger equation, which will look like this. The form of the Schrodinger equation you all know. We have I h bar ddt of psi of t on the left hand side, but on the right hand side, instead of just some h Hamiltonian, we have h of t, which is basically nothing but a combination of h naught, which was time independent, and h prime, which was time dependent. So our goal is to try to solve this equation and look for the state psi t. So typically this is the picture I was talking about. Suppose I have this as my time axis. Suppose this is my time axis, and till time ti, the initial time say, I only had the Hamiltonian which I know. So my system is, suppose, hydrogen atom. So I know exactly what this hydrogen atom Hamiltonian looks like in this region when time starts from 0 and it goes to Ti. And then after Ti, or at the point Ti, I suddenly decide to perturb the system with this H prime of T. So I have the total Hamiltonian after Ti to be equal to H0 plus H prime of T. And then after I reach time T of F, I actually decided to stop this perturbation H prime of T. Therefore, after Tf, my system again goes back to a system which can be described by a Hamiltonian which is denoted by H naught, which was the initial Hamiltonian with which I started my system, my problem. So the time dependent perturbation typically exists for some time interval. In this particular case, the perturbation remained from time Ti to Tf. Now you should ask, in the time independent perturbation theory approach, our target was to figure out, because of the application of the time independent perturbation to the original Hamiltonian, we were able to calculate what are the differences or what are the changes in the state as well as what are the changes in the energy eigenvalues. That means you were able to calculate the state of the system as well as the energy eigenvalues of the system order by order. Now you should ask that you have just told me that if I have a time dependent perturbation, that H prime of T cannot have a proper energy eigenvalue. Because of the time dependence, I cannot separate this Schrodinger equation, the wave function, to a time dependent part as well as to a space dependent part. It is not possible. Therefore, I am not going to get any kind of corrections to the state or the energy eigenvalues. So, what should we actually expect from the study, from the time dependent perturbation theory study? So to answer that, let us think of a hydrogen atom. And suppose now I turn on the electromagnetic field for some time interval, and then one can calculate firstly the probabilities to find the atom in each of the various excited states after the perturbation is switched off, because once I switch on some perturbation, there will be transitions from the ground. Suppose the hydrogen atom is in the ground state. Suppose it is in the ground state. So let me write that in ground state. So suppose I have the hydrogen atom in the ground state, and once I perturb the system with some time dependent electric field, the system will transit from ground state to some higher excited state. There you can actually calculate the probabilities to find the atom in each of the various excited states after the perturbation is switched off. The probability of ionization can also be found. Suppose your perturbation basically ionizes the hydrogen atom. So you can calculate that probability of ionization also. So these are the types of questions that you can try to answer if you study time dependent perturbation theory. So now I will actually make a small digression. In fact, I would request you to look for a very detailed and very good discussion about this Schrodinger, Heisenberg and interaction picture from the book of J.J. Sakurai. The name of the book is Modern Quantum Mechanics, J.J. Sakurai. In fact, you should look in chapter 2, where Sakurai discusses the quantum dynamics. So we will now discuss Schrodinger, Heisenberg and interaction picture, but before going to these pictures, I will very briefly remind you, you have already learned it in your PH204 class, but I want to very briefly remind you about the time evolution operator. In fact, we will see that in our case, this interaction picture will be extremely helpful to understand time dependent perturbation. Therefore, our goal is to finally reach to interaction picture after discussing Schrodinger and Heisenberg, because we will see that interaction picture is basically a mixture of Schrodinger and Heisenberg pictures, and we will use that to figure out what are the solutions of psi of t in case I have a time dependent Hamiltonian in the Schrodinger equation. So basically our goal is to look for psi of t, the solution for psi of t. So as I said, let us digress a little bit and let us ask this question: how does a quantum state change with time? It's a very simple question, and I am sure that all of you know the answer. But let me first basically set up the notation. I am following exactly the notation of Sakurai in this digression part, because that notation is sometimes very helpful to understand what is happening very clearly. And then I will again go back to the notation that we were following in this case. So the question is, how does a quantum state change with time? So suppose we have basically a system whose state at a certain time, say t0, is represented by this state gate alpha. Okay. Now, we do not in general expect the system to basically remain in the same state alpha after a certain time. Okay. So after a later time or at a later time, we should expect the state to evolve with time. And so at some later point of time, we can denote this state by this notation. Look carefully, the notation here is alpha comma t naught with a semicolon t, and here t is greater than t naught. So what does this notation tells us? It tells us that, or this alpha and t0 are there to basically remind you that the system used to be in the state alpha at some earlier time t naught, and now because we know that time is a continuous parameter, our expectation will be that if I let my t here to go to t0 in that limit, this will boil down to the original state alpha. So this is by definition, we can say that. And in fact, we can use a particular notation for this. We can write this alpha t naught semicolon t naught. We can denote this by just alpha t naught. It should be my state gate alpha. So let me remind you what I have said that here. So I have just said that we started with a state gate alpha at a time t naught. And I know that the state gate is evolving in time, because the one of the postulates of quantum mechanics is telling you that the state gate, the state of a system, is denoted by this abstract vector, which is denoted by, say, alpha, is a function of time. It evolves in the Hilbert space, and at a later time, therefore, let us denote this state gate by this notation alpha t naught semicolon t, where these alpha and t naught are written just to remind ourselves that at a previous time t naught, the state gate was just denoted by alpha or alpha comma t naught. And because time is a continuous parameter, we can actually say that in the limit t going to t naught, that means this going to t naught, we will get back the system, the state gate which was originally there, which I originally started with our discussion. Okay. So this is what is the meaning of this notation. Now what we are here to do is that we want to study the time evolution of the state gate alpha. That means I have been given this state gate alpha T naught, which I can also denote just by the gate alpha. These are the same notations, so basically they are same. So this object, this state gate, as it changes with time, it has a time evolution and it goes to a different gate which is denoted by alpha comma T naught semicolon T. This, as I already said, and I am kind of repeating myself, this alpha T naught just is here to denote or to remind ourselves that originally the state gate was this. So originally the state gate started with this alpha T naught and it has now evolved in time and has been given by this new state gate. So this is equivalent to asking the same question as how the state gate is changing under a time displacement. So it is just a displacement in time from T naught to T, and you all have studied this in PH 204 that if I have this state gate at a time T, I know that I have a time evolution operator which is denoted by ut comma t0. That means this operator acting on the original or initial state gate alpha comma t0 or alpha, as we have used the same notation, gives me the final state gate. So this operator which takes your state gate at time t naught to the state gate at time t is the time evolution operator. This is the time evolution operator which you already have encountered. And now if you actually want to look at these properties of this time evolution operator, the first important property, as you all know, I am not going to prove this, but you already know that from conservation of probability, u dagger t comma t naught times ut t naught must be unit operator. So this tells you that the time evolution operator is unitary. Similarly, you can also show that there is a composition property for the time evolution operator. That means if you take u t2 comma t0, then you can actually break this into separate parts. For example, if we are interested in obtaining the time evolution from say t0 to t2, then we can obtain the same result by first considering the time evolution from t0 to t1 and then by time evolution from t1 to t2. Remember, this time is a continuous parameter, and therefore I can simply have two different unitary operators, and ut2 t1, ut1 t0 are both unitary operators. First ut1 t0 operates on the state and then ut2 t1 operates on the state and takes the state from t0 to t2. Now in the same manner, you can actually define some infinitesimal time evolution operator. How to do that? So initial state gate was just given by alpha t naught, and we wrote alpha t naught semicolon t to denote the new state at a time t. Now instead of that t, let us denote this by just t naught plus dt. Some small infinitesimal change in the time t naught is represented by this dt. So how to write that? We can simply say that okay, from from t0 my system is going to t0 plus dt. The state gate is going from t0 to t0 plus dt. Therefore, the unitary operator u t0 plus dt comma t0 should act on my initial state gate, which is alpha comma t0. Now, of course, we know that because of the continuity, the infinitesimal time evolution operator has to reduce to unity. You remember our equation 2 here. This says that if in the limit t going to t naught, I will have my original state gate back. So here, if I choose dt to 0, then this has to be identity. There is no other way. In the limit dt going to 0, this u operator, the infinitesimal time evolution operator, has to be unity. And now the difference between u t naught plus dt t naught, so difference between this infinitesimal time evolution operator and unity or unit operator will be the first order in dt. So of course that is what you will expect, that what is the difference between this infinitesimal time evolution operator and unit operator? Of course this has to be of the order of dt. So keeping these things in mind, keeping everything in mind, I can choose the form of the infinitesimal time evolution operator in this manner, as I have written in equation 8. What does this tell us? It tells us that if I have the infinitesimal operator and if I keep everything up to order dt, first order in dt, then as we have shown that in the limit dt goes to 0, this operator goes to 1, so this should be there. And then we also have said that the difference between u t0 plus dt comma t0 and 1 is of the order of dt. Therefore, there will be this I omega dt term, where omega has to be Hermitian because we also need to keep the unitarity property. That is why this I will come to make omega Hermitian, as well as we need to keep the unitarity property of the u operator. So this together gives us the form of this infinitesimal time evolution operator. Now you can actually check all the properties of u that I have mentioned, that it has to be unitary, it has to have the composition property. It can be shown that infinitesimal time evolution operator satisfies all the properties that I have mentioned. So this, now our task will be to figure out what this Hermitian operator omega can be, because essentially I have just introduced this omega as a operator, as an operator, simply because this is an unitary operator, this is an unit operator. There should be some operator sitting there, and I know that the difference between this and this has to be of the order of dt. So this is like some proportionality operator, constant proportionality, constant of proportionality type of thing. Now, what can I talk about this operator omega? Certainly, this is dimensionless, and there is a dimension dt, the time dimension, in the second term. To cancel this, I must have omega to be the dimension of inverse time. That means it has to have the dimension of frequency. Now, we should actually recollect our memory and ask this question, that is there any observable which has the dimension of frequency? And we will say, yes, of course. In the old quantum theory, we wrote E equal to h bar omega. So that was your famous Planck-Einstein relation. The angular frequency omega is basically related to the energy, and here you see that E has the dimension of the frequency, the angular frequency. Now, if you borrow the idea from classical mechanics, the Hamiltonian is the generator of time evolution. So this motivates us to think that this object can be related to the observable energy. But then classical mechanics already has taught us that Hamiltonian is the generator of time evolution. So I can safely claim that omega will be of the form h, where h is the Hamiltonian divided by h bar, the Planck constant. So to summarize, the form of the time evolution operator should therefore be given by 1 minus I h dt by h bar. So capital H, of course, is the Hamiltonian operator. It is assumed to be Hermitian. Now you may ask whether h bar introduced here is the same h bar that actually appears everywhere else. So that you can actually answer by comparing the quantum mechanical equation of motion that one can derive using Heisenberg picture, but that we will come to later. So for the time being, let's not bother about this. So we can actually now write this object u t plus dt comma t0. I can write this as u t plus dt to t and then u t comma t0, because using the composition property, this I can always write. Now we know what this object is. This is, using this equation, we can write this as 1 minus I h dt by h bar, and then we have u t comma t0. Therefore u t plus dt comma t0 minus u t t0, just you multiply u t t0 with both the terms and then take this to the left hand side. What you will get is I h by h bar dt into u t t0. So that's what is going to give you the Schrodinger equation for u. I think there is a mistake. There is a minus sign here. Must be a minus sign here. Okay. So you can rearrange the terms now, and you can now take the limit dt going to 0. And if you take the limit dt going to 0, what you get is basically I h bar del t of u t comma t0 is equal to h times u t comma t0. So this is the Schrodinger equation for the time evolution operator. Everything that has to do with time development should follow from this time evolution Schrodinger equation of time evolution operator. So this is a very important equation in quantum mechanics. Now therefore what we do is that we basically operate I h bar del u del t on the initial state gate alpha comma t0. Therefore I also have on the right hand side u t t0 acting on alpha comma t0. But we know the operation of u t comma t0 on alpha t0, that is going to give me the state gate at a later time t. So the right hand side is going to give us h alpha t0 comma t. Now here also you can think of this del t u t t0 acting on alpha t0. So this is going to give us just I h bar del t alpha t0 comma t. So we know two things now. One is that this is our Schrodinger equation for the time evolution operator, and the second thing is that this is the equation that we have obtained after we have operated our initial state gate both sides to the right of this Schrodinger equation for the time development operator or time evolution operator. Now, solution for this, a formal solution for this should therefore be of this form, because that you can check simply by simply substituting this into this form. Remember, this H is still the operator. H is the operator. So that you have to keep in mind. So now with this basic idea, so we have figured out the form of the time evolution operator. With this basic knowledge, let us actually go back and discuss the Schrodinger and Heisenberg picture. We will come to the interaction picture later. Now, what does Schrodinger picture tell us? The Schrodinger picture gives us the fact that the operators which corresponds to observables, for example, like position operator, the momentum operator, they are fixed in time, while state gates, they vary with time. So that is what you have already done in your quantum mechanics that you have encountered so far. Remember, you started with the state gate which was always explicitly dependent on time. That is with which you started your quantum mechanics, the linear vector space discussion or the postulates of quantum mechanics discussion. Now, this is what is known as Schrodinger picture. In this picture, the state gates are functions of time, whereas the operators which corresponds to observables, they are fixed in time. They are not changing with time. So that is what is known as Schrodinger picture, and that is what you have done so far. In this picture, the dynamics is being controlled by Schrodinger equation. Now, what is Heisenberg picture? Heisenberg picture is nothing but the operators corresponding to the observables. They vary with time. In this picture, you will say, okay, the state gates are fixed in time. Let us fix the state gates with time, but let us say that the operators corresponding to the observables, they vary with time. You will ask, like, how suddenly this picture is going to be equivalent to the Schrodinger picture? It's very easy to show that. So let us discuss this briefly. Let us choose, say, the initial time which earlier we denoted by t naught to be equal to 0. So therefore my ut comma t0, but now t0 equal to 0 is nothing but ut which is having this form exponential minus iht by h bar. You recall that this is the form that we have obtained for the unitary operator, time evolution operator. Now we choose t0 to be equal to 0. Therefore, this is the form that we will get. Now remember, what did this u do? This u operator acting on alpha, this basically tells you that how the state gate is changing, either changing, or you can think of there can be translation in time also, whatever. So we are looking at the time evolution, so we will talk about time evolution only. So this is what this operator is doing. Now you will say that, okay, fine, I know that this is how the states are changing in time. Therefore, I can write the inner product between beta and alpha in this manner, that u alpha has changed to u alpha, beta will change to u beta, but then bra beta will be u dagger beta, which is here. But we know that u is unitary, therefore u dagger u must be equal to 1. So I will get back simply beta alpha. Now this, suppose let us have an operator x. So this is an operator, and suppose we are doing this calculation for matrix elements. Now you say that okay, this alpha and beta, these state states are changing with time, and I know how it changes. I know that this u operator is acting on these states and is changing it in time. Therefore, I can write that after a certain time, alpha will be u alpha, beta bra, the dual of beta will be u dagger beta. So I have simply written that these are the ways the states are changing, and this remains as it is. So I can write this as beta u dagger x u alpha. But let us have a closer look in the way we are writing. You observe that I can always write this as bra beta u dagger dotted with x dotted with u acting on alpha. But I can also say I have the state states here, I have the state states here, and I want to think of this x to have changed to u dagger x u. Aren't they both same? They are both same. Mathematically, I have not done anything. Mathematically, I have not changed anything. I am just looking onto the same equation from two different perspectives. One time, I am saying that my state states are changing and my x operator, whatever is here, is sitting as it is. I can look at the same equation, and I can also claim that I have my state states which are not changing. Rather, my operator x is changing in the following manner, u dagger x u. So you will ask, is there any physics associated with this observation? Of course, there are two different ways that you have to look into it. One, as I said, the state states are changing, like alpha going to u alpha, kate u alpha, u kate alpha, with the operators remaining unchanged. Here, the operator did not change. In the second picture, you are saying that the operator has got changed, where the states remain unchanged. The states are not touched. You just are looking into the x operator as if it has changed from x to u dagger x u. So this observation motivates one towards Heisenberg picture, and this one, this operation, this idea is already known to you. That is the standard Schrodinger picture. You probably have not heard the name, but this is what is called as Schrodinger picture. So now suppose I have an operator in the Heisenberg picture where I have denoted this by this H, capital H within bracket as a superscript. Therefore, I can write this operator by definition u dagger t as ut. What is as? As is the operator in the Schrodinger picture. So it's exactly the same. Here my operator remained unchanged. So it's like the Schrodinger operator. Here I am saying that my operator has changed, the states remain unchanged. So this is like therefore the Heisenberg picture. So at time t equal to 0, therefore you immediately see, you know that u dagger t and ut has the form e to the power iht by h bar or e to the power minus iht by h bar respectively. So if you choose t equal to 0, then those quantities are just 1. E to the power iht by h bar is 1. Therefore, at time t equal to 0, the Heisenberg picture observables and Schrodinger picture observables, which are represented by these operators, they coincide. So AH0 is equal to AS. Now state states also coincides between two pictures at time t equal to 0. At later time t, the Heisenberg picture state state is frozen to what it was at t equal to 0. For example, you can write this as alpha. Suppose we start with t0 equal to 0 at t, and we just write the subscript h. So this is nothing but alpha t0 equal to 0. It's independent of t. That's what is expected. That's what is expected from the definition of Heisenberg picture. Now, of course, this is in contradiction to the Schrodinger picture. In the Schrodinger picture, remember, the state gate changes. And what changes the state gate? This operator ut changes the state gate. Ut operator acting on alpha t0 equal to 0 or just on the state alpha gives you this state in the Schrodinger picture. So this is how the states are changing in the two different pictures. What about the expectation value? Of course, expectation value cannot change in these two pictures. They are the things that you measure. So let us look at what happens to the expectation value. As usual, as I said, our initial time we are always choosing to be equal to 0. So at time t, we know that this is going to be alpha semicolon t. This is the Schrodinger operator A, and then here we have just the same state gate alpha comma t or alpha semicolon t. Now I know from where this bra or where this gate is coming from. I know that ut acting on alpha is going to give me alpha semicolon t. Similarly, u dagger t acting on alpha is going to give me alpha t bra. So therefore, I now have this object u dagger ASU, and I will call this u dagger ASU to be AHT. And now again you see that this object is nothing but alpha t AHT alpha t0 equal to 0 t. So these are also very useful results that you should remember. Now what does the Schrodinger picture tell us? Schrodinger picture time evolution is already known. We know that the dynamics is governed by the Schrodinger equation. So this is the Schrodinger equation, and the formal solution of course is given by this psi of t acted by the unitary operator, which is this, on psi 0 is going to give us the solution. But now you know that this psi t, the inner product, is not going to change. So this is whatever the inner product is at time t equal to 0, it will give you the same inner product at time t equal to t. Now heuristically, we know that a rotation of vectors, that does not change the magnitude of the vector. So the kth vectors in the Schrodinger picture can be thought to be rotating in the Hilbert space, and that is why they are time dependent. This is just an analogy in the Hilbert space, as if the state vectors are kind of rotating. What is the case of Heisenberg picture? So here we had Schrodinger equation which governed the dynamics. We have to have some equation of motion in this picture also. How to figure out that equation of motion? So that we can figure out from this definition of the Heisenberg operators. We know that AHT is u dagger ASU. Now you operate this DDT operator on this left hand side on AHT, and then immediately you know that the del t will first act on u dagger. Now there is no explicit time dependence in this Schrodinger picture operators. That is the initial assumption. So in the second term, del t on AS is going to give 0. So then the del t operator will come and operate on this u. So we will have u dagger AS del u del t. Now what you do is that in this step, we use the Schrodinger equation from going from this step to this step. We use the Schrodinger equation for the unitary operator. Remember, we have proved these two relations. Just go back and check equation 9. Here we have actually had proven this. Where is equation 9? Here. So del u del t is equal to 1 by IH bar H operator acting on U. Similarly, del U dagger del T will give you minus 1 by I H bar H U. Remember, H is Hermitian, so H dagger is H. So now let us go back into this where we were discussing this. So using this set and also knowing that U dagger is going to be 1, first we change del U dagger del T. Del U dagger del T from here is nothing but minus 1 by I H U dagger H. So that is here we have put. Then in between this and this, we just put this unitarity relation. Similarly, in the second term also, del U del T I simply replace by 1 by I H bar H U. So that is this. But before that, I also introduce this U dagger term here between U dagger AS and this del U del T. So now let us see what happens. We simply note that U dagger HU is nothing but H Heisenberg, the Heisenberg Hamiltonian. But we also know that form of UT is e to the power minus IHT by H bar. So in this relation, the way we have written, H and U, they commute. Since H and U commute, the Hamiltonian operator is same in both the pictures. Because of this relation and because of this relation, and because U commutes with H, we claim or we see that the Hamiltonian operator is same in both the pictures. So therefore, just looking at this relation, we take this relation and we simplify it to this form. Simply saying that U dagger ASU is AH, and simply saying that HH is just the H, the HH and HS are the same. So we have DAH dt is equal to minus 1 by IH bar HAH plus 1 by IH bar AHH. So it's a commutation relation. It's a commutation relation, and this equation is one of the most important equations in quantum mechanics. It is called the Heisenberg equation of motion. So pictorially, if you want to think, in the Schrodinger picture, we said that psi of t can be thought of as rotating in the Hilbert space, and that is why they were changing with time, but the magnitude was remaining the same or remaining unchanged. On the other hand, in the Heisenberg picture, one can think of the observer to be sitting on the state gate itself, and so it will not see that the state gate is rotating, rather it will think that the reference frames are rotating, kind of. And that means the basis vectors will be changing with time, and that means the operators has to change, or operators must be dependent on time. Because the basis vectors are changing, the operators need to be changed. So now the operator will become time dependent. So this is some kind of a rough physical idea that you can get. So what are the advantages of this Heisenberg picture? So you all know that in classical mechanics, the position, the momentum, the energy, all these were observables or dynamical variables. And in quantum mechanics, we treat them as operators. But Kate psi, which was the state Kate, denoting the state of a system, was basically a purely quantum mechanical quantity, and we had that in the Schrodinger picture. And we also know that the state Kate psi has nothing to do with the state of a system in classical mechanics. Classical mechanics, we denote the states of a system by defining these xp's and other things, but here the state Kate psi does not have any physically linkage, any physical linkage or any consequences corresponding to classical mechanics. But in the Heisenberg picture, operators are time independent, which are dynamical variables in classical mechanics. Now, in classical mechanics, you must have come across this relation where dA dt, any dynamical variable, rate of change of that dynamical variable, is the Poisson bracket between that variable and the Hamiltonian of the system. And look at your Heisenberg equation of motion. Heisenberg equation of motion is nothing but dA h dt is equal to 1 by I h bar, commutation between AH and H. So that is a very, very important observation. So it was first proposed by Dirac that when he was formulating this modern quantum mechanics, he said that you actually replace the classical mechanical Poisson bracket by the commutator bracket divided by IH bar. So for quantities possessing the classical counterparts, the correct classical equation can be obtained from the corresponding quantum mechanical equation via this relation, and that corresponding quantum mechanical equation is nothing but the Heisenberg equation of motion. Note that not necessarily classical counterparts, I mean, like here something can be purely quantum mechanical. Instead of AH, I mean, instead of any other variables, you can any other dynamical variable or the observables, you can also have S, the spin, which does not have a classical counterpart. Still this equation is valid. Okay, so that's what we wanted to discuss. I will come to the interaction picture now. In the interaction picture, what we do is that it is a mixture of the Schrodinger as well as the Heisenberg picture. And now let us actually forget about all that what we have discussed, all the notations, and let us simply recollect that this is the equation that we wanted to look at. And this equation we needed to solve for psi of t. And to solve for psi of t, I am claiming that we need to introduce the interaction picture. After knowing this Heisenberg and Schrodinger picture, it will be very easy for us to introduce the interaction picture. So now, what is the strategy to solve this problem? So we will use H0 to define some Heisenberg operator, and we will use the perturbation H prime of t to write the Schrodinger equation. Why? Because you see that H0 basically has no time dependence. So you can write that e to the power minus I something into H0 into e to the power plus I something as a new Heisenberg operator. So it will be, the strategy will be much clear if I show you a few steps. For example, let us recollect that we, in the Schrodinger picture, we had written psi t to be equal to ut acting on psi 0, ket psi 0. And then we write down this this matrix element, this expectation value of AS in this state psi t. But we know how the state psi t changes. Psi t changes as ut acting on psi 0. Similarly, bra psi t changes as u dagger t acting on bra psi 0. So this is how we get this next step, and therefore, as we all know, this is nothing but psi 0 AH psi 0. So what is AHT? In this notation, AHT is u dagger, AS u. So for the present case, the known operator H0, remember for our time dependent problem, H0 is the known operator, whose known Hamiltonian operator, whose spectrum is known. So H0 is time independent. Hence we can write ut as exponential minus IH0t by h bar. This is the time evolution operator. Also, you note this important property that suppose I am given psi t. So this is my psi t. It is given in terms of ut psi 0. Now if we operate both sides by u dagger t, I will have u dagger t ut on psi 0, but u dagger t ut is 1 unit operator. So I will have psi 0 as u dagger t on psi t. So it can be thought of as bringing the state psi t to rest by operating u dagger t on this psi t. Remember, we just said that physically you can think of this Heisenberg, the Schrodinger operator, Schrodinger state gate to be rotating in the Hilbert space. So by operating u dagger t, as if we have actually frozen this state gate psi t in time. So basically what this operator u dagger t has done on this is that it has removed the explicit time dependence from the state gate. Now we can use this idea in our case, but the question is, how are we going to this idea? So for our case, the time dependent Hamiltonian is h0 plus h prime t. This does not have any time dependence, this is time dependent. So here is where you can actually do the time evolution through Heisenberg with h0 and let Schrodinger do the work for h prime of t. Again, I will come and discuss. I will discuss this in detail. It is very easy to understand, but it is very elegant also. So for h0, we know that this holds ut as the form e to the minus I h0t by h bar. It does the time of evolution. Now take this psi t and now try to bring this psi t to rest. Remember, in order to use this Heisenberg picture, we need to have the time, have to have the state gates which are not dependent on time. So what we do is that we operate on psi t by u dagger, just motivated by this. Motivated by this, we operate u dagger on psi t. But what is u dagger? This is my u, therefore u dagger is e to the power plus I h0t by h bar, and then it is acted on psi t. So let us use a new notation, psi tilde of t, ket psi tilde t. So this is the operation that brings the state to rest if the Hamiltonian is only h0. Remember, if the Hamiltonian is only h0, then only this brings the state to rest. But because the total Hamiltonian is not h0, rather it is h of t, this object will in general not be time dependent, not be time independent rather. And this is therefore a wave function in which we have removed the time evolution having to do with h0 part only. So we have not removed the full time dependence, we have only removed the time dependence or time evolution which has something to do with the h0 part only. Or in other words, if h prime t were 0, if there were no perturbation, then this object psi tilde, which we have denoted by this, would have been constant in time. But we are not purely able to make this thing constant because of the presence of a non-zero h prime t. So now our new variable instead of psi of t is psi tilde of t. But psi tilde of t, we have just seen, is nothing but e to the power I h0 t by h bar into psi of t. Therefore, psi of t is this object, e to the minus I h0 t by h bar psi tilde. Now, if we can find psi tilde of t, we can also find psi of t by using this relation. So our target now will be to look for a solution of psi tilde t. So what will be the Schrodinger equation for that psi tilde t? It is very easy. You just operate I h bar del del t on psi tilde of t. But you know what is psi tilde of t? Psi tilde of t we have just defined here. It is given by e to the I h0 t by h bar into psi of t, operated on psi of t. So this I h bar del del t on psi tilde t is basically nothing but this. So del t will first act on this object and it will give one I h0 by h bar e to the power I h0 t by h bar, and psi t will remain. And then this del t will go through this operator and it will act on del t on psi t. Remember that this is an operator, so the ordering everywhere is very important. Now because this is an operator, this is an operator, but both of them are same, I can actually pass this operator through to this side. Okay, so this is basically E minus h no, okay, no, is that is also not required at the moment. I will simply call this object just by noting the fact that psi t is equal to e to the minus I h0 t by h bar on psi tilde t. So this object is nothing but psi tilde t. And we have a minus sign because of these two i's, and h bar get cancelled. Here I h bar is there and e to the I h0 t by h bar is there, and then we have del t of psi of t. But this is our known Schrodinger equation. We started with this equation at the very beginning of this class. This is nothing but h0 plus h prime t acting on psi t. So now this is minus h0 psi tilde of t, and then I have e to the power I h0 t by h bar. I have replaced this by this object, so I have this quantity e to the power minus I h0 t by h bar into psi tilde t. I have simply changed this psi t to psi tilde t by multiplying or by operating with this thing. So just some algebra. But now you note one thing, e to the power I h0 t h0 and then e to the power minus I h0 t by h bar. So this combination, you have h0 here and h0 here, so they commute. So therefore I can simply take this to the right of h naught, and then this and this cancels each other. So what remains from the first term here is that h0 psi tilde t. So h0 psi tilde t cancels with the first h0 psi tilde t, and what remains is e to the power I h0 t by h bar h prime t e to the power minus I h0 t by h bar psi tilde t. So h0 commutes with, this is true because h0 commutes with e to the power I h0 t by h bar. So this is what our equation is, that I h bar del t of psi tilde of t, this is on the left hand side, is e to the I h0 t, this object h prime t e to the power minus I h0 t psi tilde t. So let us call this object h tilde prime t. So now we have everything. We have h prime tilde t as this, and we also have the Schrodinger equation for psi tilde t where we have h prime tilde t. So we will stop now and we will continue from this tomorrow.